So I guess you've been in a situation where you have made this amazing sounding main melody, or maybe you just found a sample that seriously like hits home, bro, but it still needs this counter melody to complement the sample, and you seriously can't seem to make it happen. Well, today I'm actually going to help you guys out, since I'm going to teach you guys the easiest way to make simple counter melodies that pretty much always work. So I'm not going to waste any more time, let's just get straight to it. Okay, so we're here in FL21. Now firstly, I'm going to show you guys how to make counter melodies if you're making your own melodies to start off with. And then later, I'll pretty much show you guys that it works if you're using loops too. You obviously need to make a main melody. So I'm just going to start off by lowering the BPM to about 120. And then I'm just going to be using this pick nylon guitar in Contact. The key I'm working in is E minor. And since the point here is to make a counter melody, I'm not really going to explain too much about the main melody. We just need to make something simple that's a bit catchy. So since we are working in E minor, I'm just going to start off with this E note right here. Extend this out, then we can just go up in the scale like this. Let's turn the velocity a bit down first. Try to make something simple. So I just copied this over from the first part and pitched up the middle note. I just put it back to the E though. Now for the second part, I'm just gonna paste this over, but I'm gonna pitch these down by 5 semitones. We can keep this part the same, but for this last part, I think I want to change up some of the notes. So we can maybe pitch this down, and let's try and pitching this down as well. Maybe something like this. Yeah, I like that. So I like this simple guitar pattern we have right now. Just gonna copy this over so we have the same exact pattern for the second part too. Now before we get into the counter melody, I'm quickly just going to add some effects to the main guitar. So firstly, I'm just going to add some roam. Then I just added this RC20 using the Vinyl 3 preset. And lastly, just this low cut EQ right here. Alright, so now we have the part where we need to add a counter melody. Now the first thing we need to know before we're adding the counter melody is what type of instrument we're going to be using. And this is actually super important because some instruments complement the others super well. On the other side, you also have instruments that don't really go that well together. So in my experience, if you're using a guitar loop or you just made a guitar sample like we did, instruments that go super well with guitars are usually whistles, flutes, strings, or even more guitar top lines in higher frequencies. If you're maybe using something like pianos or bells, you would usually hear some more atmospheric type of sounds like vocals, pads, again pianos in the higher frequencies, or maybe some brass and strings. Now in this case, since we have a main melody that's a guitar, I feel like adding a nice counter melody using a flute. So as for the flute I'm using, it's going to be this Surrey flute in Contact. It's by Ventus Ethnic Winds, hands down one of the best flutes I've ever used. The only trick that makes this sound even better is actually by turning the vibrato up to something in between 90 and 100. So I like putting it at about 93. You can see it right here. And then you actually also want to go up to this tune and just type in 12. This is actually going to pitch up the flute by 1 octave, but it makes it go a bit faster and it just sounds way better. So when it comes to making counter melodies, especially if you're using flutes like this, my personal favorite trick to do is actually to go to this magnet tool right here and just go to third beat. This is especially crucial if your main melody is in half beat, because having a melody in both half beat and third beat makes it flow super nicely, and it also makes it sound a bit unique at the same time. But when it comes to actually writing in your counter melody in the piano roll, you pretty much want to keep a note of the ghost notes you've already made. Now this is easier if you made the melody yourself, but if you're using loops, you shouldn't worry, because as long as you have the right scale of the loop, it's going to work either way. Now as you can see right here, since the ghost notes, I would usually recommend using most of the same notes you've already used in your ghost notes. So to start off this flute, I would either start with the E, a G, or a B, since we have already used the E minor chord. Now in this case, I'm just going to use this E right here, and you seriously don't want to make it too complicated. You have to think of the counter melody as just some ear candy to the main sample. So it's pretty much just something that's going to change up the melody slightly in a very nice way, but not so much that it sounds way too complicated. So the way I like making my flute melodies is just by having a short note first, and then since we're in third beat, I'm just going to go to this half step right here, and then I'm just going to add a note right here. And inside of this half measure right here, I just want to have 3 notes that complement each other like this. Then I'm just going to highlight them all and shorten them like this, just so we have some space in between each one. Now I'm just going to pitch down each one so they pretty much go down in a staircase like this. And then you also want to look at the space right here. Since the guitar isn't hitting right here, there's lots of space to add the instrument from the counter melody. So I'm just going to add a note right here, which we're going to extend all the way. Then just copy this over, pitch it down by 5 and pitch it up by 1 octave. So then you can see this goes back to this B we have already used, and it's actually the same root note that we have from the guitar. Now let's take a listen to how it sounds with the guitar. So it seriously sounds crazy already. And this is seriously all the ear candy you need to make a nice sounding counter melody. Now just to explain the reason why this sounds nice. Like I said, it's because we're using the notes we already have used from the guitar. So the notes are going to complement each other. And we're also leaving lots of space right here in between the hits. So it's not too complicated, but it still adds this catchy groove to the sample. Now just to make it a bit more unique, we're actually going to copy the same exact pattern over, but we definitely want to switch it up a bit on the second part. So since we have a lot of space in this first part, we definitely have some spaces we can add some more notes. So since we've been using this note right here, so I think we can actually add a note on this G5. And then we can do something cool for this last part. We can probably add a note right here, which we can shorten a bit. And then let's try to completely change up this last part. So again, we'll have a downward motion since we're going back to the E. Also, a little pro tip for this flute right here. If you have notes like these ones right here, which go straight up to each other, you just want to extend them a slightly bit over. This is going to trigger that legato we adjusted earlier. So let's see how the whole flute melody sounds right now. Yo, the melody sounds amazing over the guitar. Now we just need to add some quick effects to the flute, just so we can make it fit with the guitar even better. So some crucial effects for counter melodies are actually some imagers that are going to widen the sound, and you should also add some panning just so we can pan it from left to right. So I like using this pancake plugin right here for panning. You're going to hear it pans from the left ear to the right ear. Just turn the mix down a little bit. And now it sounds great. I'm also going to add some fresh air just to give it a bit of lighter color. Some roam right here just to give it some more ambience and reverb. And lastly, we're just going to add some EQ. So of course, practice makes perfect. So make sure you guys are seriously practicing your counter melodies if you have a big problem with them. But maybe you want to add some guitar top lines that sound super realistic, but you don't know how to play the guitar. Well, then there's actually another trick that you can use for counter melodies, which is super simple. And the trick is actually to use phrases as counter melodies. Now, there are some different plugins out there which you can use as guitar phrases like this one. But just to give you guys a quick example of how easy it actually is, I'm going to use this preset in Arcade right here. All you want to do is just make sure that the key is the right key you're using. So like I said, we were working in E minor, so we just want to switch this to E. And then you pretty much just want to find a phrase that sounds nice with the guitar you've already made. Okay, so this could work. It's seriously just one note, but it sounds amazing over the guitar. So that's literally how simple it actually is to add some counter melodies, even if you don't know how to play the guitar. Now, just to show you guys that this actually works on loops too, I'm just going to open up my Libre sample pack, and then I'm pretty much just going to drag in a random loop. So we can use this loop number 11 right here. So let's say you were seriously messing with this main guitar loop right here. And you pretty much just wanted to add a nice counter melody to this. I'm firstly just going to pitch it to E minor so I don't have to change the pitch. Then we can just go back to the flute and pretty much see that the same pattern is going to work over this guitar loop as well. So you can see the case is pretty much the exact same when it comes to using loops as well. As long as you know the key, you can just work around with the notes, make sure they're spaced out, and it's going to be way easier for you guys. Now again, we can also use Arcade for this guitar loop we're using. Just try to find a different note that sounds nice with the pattern. So this piano sounds alright. Like I said, the point is pretty much the same, but it just makes making counter melodies way easier. So let's just delete this loop and go back to the guitar pattern we made. Now let's just finish off this loop and make a crazy beat over it. So the next thing I'm going to do is just go into my Imperial one-shot kit. I'm going to use one of the textures from the map right here. I'm going to drag in this flute texture right here. Just stretch it to time. And actually, I'm going to use this night texture instead. Yeah, I feel like this sounds a bit better. You can actually open up this parametric EQ right here. Just go to presets and use this radio preset right here. It just makes any texture sound perfectly together with the sample you're making. Now I just want to add some atmosphere to this guitar sample. So I'm going to open up Arcade again, but this time I'm going to try to find a nice sounding vocal. So I found this vocal right here. We just want to tuck it a bit in the background so it doesn't overcomplicate the sample. So I just added this reverb right here. Pretty much all standard settings. I'm just going to turn up the low cut a bit. And then just this EQ to cut out the high frequencies. Now I don't want to make the tutorial too complicated, so I just think we could get straight onto the drums. Now the drum sounds I'm using are all coming from my No Limit drum kit, so make sure to check that one out if you want to use the same drum sounds. Let's just start off with a simple bounce. I'm just gonna lower the velocity on this one a little bit. Let's add some nice sounding hi-hats. I'm feeling this attack hi-hat today. We can have this roll right here on the clap. Trying to add a small cut at the end as well. Now I just want to adjust some of the notes down a bit, so I'm going to go to this brush tool, and then you can actually just hold shift on your keyboard and just click the notes down to the note you want. Space this over and that's pretty much the hi-hat pattern. Yeah, just add a slight loop raider right there. Just make the hi-hat sound a bit more unique. I think we can actually add some more open hats as well. Now I'm feeling a crazy 808 pattern on this one. Now let's go for this gear 808 right here. This one also slaps, bro. I love my 808s. Push this up. Add a nice roll right here. Oof. Oof, we need to add a kick on this now. Just copy this pattern, highlight everything and hit Alt K. Oh, this is crazy. Woo. That kick pattern right there. Now quickly before I show you guys the full beat, I just want to tell you guys that if you need free sample packs, one-shot kits, drum kits and so on, I actually have them all on my website. It's BBMarko.com. It's of course linked down below. Besides that, let me take you through the whole beat. So we're just starting off with a super simple intro, only the guitar and the vocal.
Shut up, Marco. Marco? Marco?
Yeah, the flute makes it sound crazy. Then it slightly drops out. It starts to creep back together. So the flute comes back in on this second part right now. Then we have this cool tape right here before it just loops over again.